Hearties, welcome to Heart to Heart. This is our chat with our cast and crew of When Calls the Heart. And I'm Dawn Bateman from Wiley, Texas.
Kim McDonald from Ontario, Canada.
And I'm Annette from South Carolina.
Heart to Heart is delighted to welcome the editing duo who bring the magic to the post-production finished product we see on When Calls the Heart. We have Charles Robichaud and Elisabeth Pechlaner.
Thank you.
Welcome. Boop, boop.
Thank you very much.
It's
wonderful to be here.
I love that. So you're editing partners for the show and married in real life? That's what we hear.
Rumor has it.
Long time.
All right. So, and John Tinker, our showrunner, was talking about your duo so many times. Yep. All the time they were, commenting about your editing choices and things like that. So we are, wanting to know about the history of your experience with the show. So Elisabeth, you joined recently, right? Yeah. And I think Charles is going to be in a longer tenure. How long have you been there, Charles? And then, and what Elisabeth?
Yeah. Well, I came in on season 1, not at the very beginning. The original order for When Calls the Heart was 10 episodes. And the network Hallmark and the producers quickly realized how popular it was. And they decided to add another 2 episodes to the season. When they did that, well, by the time that decision was made, the original 2 editors, Bridget Dunsford and Nicole Radcliffe, had already agreed to do other projects elsewhere. And so they needed an alternate. And Neil Fernley, the director, knew me, and he said to Greg Malcolm and Vicky Southern, I know this guy. Get this guy. So,
I know a guy. Yeah, that's what I heard.
A fixer, yeah. So so I joined the show. I was very happy to do so. It was great. It was a lot of fun. Having never worked with Greg or Vicky before, we got along instantly, and 10 years later, I still work for them. They're just a fantastic bunch of producers and directors. Couldn't be happier.
That's great.
And then last year, I got a call from producers saying, "Do you think Elisabeth would be interested in editing When Calls the Heart?" And I said, "I don't know. I guess I'll go ask her." So, and Elisabeth was out.
And she said yes.
Yay.
We're trying to do the Hardy thing, right? It's like, she said yes. That's all I had to do.
But they said, well, give it a few days. You might not want to work together or anything. And I said, well, I don't know. I'll check with it. But it's funny because the last time we did work together was the year we were married. So that was like 24 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations. 4 years. That's impressive. That's great. And so, Elisabeth, you've been for the last season 8?
9.
And 9?
Just 9?
Only 9.
Just 9.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you heard all about us all these seasons.
That's
You lived
true.
vicariously through Charles, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I watched
wow,
it.
These Hearties.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
You guys are a force. You're a force.
As a amateur editor at this point, I don't have any clue about what you do with TV editing in a show with 12 episodes. So can you tell us how the process goes? Like when you get first involved, I don't know if it's with a script or after it's everything is recorded, whatever it is, and in the storytelling and how it unfolds through, these last, 12 episodes. You do it with a block. I don't know. Just tell us the story about what your life is in an editor.
Editors are not generally involved at all in the script process. That writers write, nobody else is involved in that sort of stuff, production designer or director of photography, editors, any keys. Every once in a while, we will suggest or write a line that helps to clear up something in post-production if there was a problem with some plot point, or a scene has been removed, but you need to touch on something that happened anyway. So we might come up with a line and suggest that to the producers or the writers, and they might include that. I don't know if we've done that on One Calls the Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's right. You did, absolutely. Yeah. Elisabeth worked with John oh yeah. Sorry, I'm getting way ahead of myself. There's the whole Hope Valley Days thing. There's a whole sequence where you see a whole bunch of activities among the different holidays. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but Elisabeth actually wrote quite an extensive piece for that. And then it got rewritten and shaped by the writers and producers. But she came up with some brilliant creative solutions to what needed to be done there.
When Calls the Heart has been a great experience, and John Tinker offered me the opportunity. He just said, well, see what you can come up with. And then I was like, oh yeah. So it just kind of all like, because it was just so open, like I just did whatever. Knew I had to sound like John and Elisabeth. And then it was so great. I just loved it. And then when John saw it, he was like cheering and he did little emojis coming up. And I was like, oh, this is so awesome. Just
this the like, because there was 2 Hope Valley Days. Yeah. We have 2 episodes. And so were you doing one with the first one, or just throughout the Hope Valley Days 2 episodes?
Well, it's kind of addressing an earlier question that you had, which is the shows are shot in blocks. So that means there are 2 episodes together. So we'll be getting stuff for the 2 episodes at the same time, intermixed, edit here, edit there.
A little bit of episode 3, a little bit of episode 4 every day usually. And then
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
Okay.
right. Yes.
Yeah. So I had both of Hope Valley Days. And like when I was reading the script, I went, oh my God. Oh my God. There was Halloween. There was Valentine's Day. It was just like every, when people get a holiday show, they're always like, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. You put all of them in one script. It was like, what was that? But anyway, so when we got to the second part 2 of Hope Valley Days, it was short by 2 minutes or something like that. And so there was a little bit of a problem, a red flag about that. So so we had to find a way to make the shows work together. We were trying to think, should we pull from one to put in the other? And we came up with a way that I think even addressed notes that had come up in the script, which was, how do we know that this is Hope Valley Days continued? Well, now this intro explains.
And I love that.
I remember it so well.
The 4 corners.
See, that was from the first part. We took it out of there, so it was saved, and then we put it in there again. It was very inventive. Like, it was interesting to do that. I really liked it.
Unbelievable. So when you are doing just the first episode or 2 episodes, because you have a block, and do they record all of the you have your rough B-roll, whatever it is, how do you decide, or is this something that you have notes from the director? What kinds of things do they want to have, good takes, bad takes, anything like that?
The directors don't usually give us many notes anymore. In years gone by, the script supervisor would write down something that the director said that he prefers this particular take for that line of dialogue or something. But it might just be the directors who we tend to work with, but they leave it up to us. And I'll look through everything and choose a performance that I think is the most energetic or the most heartfelt or something. And so I'll go through and I'll look for something that best typifies that moment. And it's kind of it's an artistic process in that you're feeling it as much as intellectually understanding it. I put myself in the position of the audience, and then I go, the audience is going to expect to see this. Do I really want to meet that expectation right now? Or do I want to hold back and let there be a bit of mystery or a bit of tension before I let that moment happen in a performance? And then the directors come in and they'll have generally some notes. They'll say, well, I think I'd like to see that in a wider shot than the close-up, because there's more of a payoff at the end of the scene when the stakes are high and you go in tight here instead of being in a two-shot, that sort of thing. But also when we get those dailies and you're looking for those shots, I'll scan through very quickly all of the coverage. And I'll say, okay, yeah, we've got a two-shot, we've got a wider single, and then we've got a big close-up, and we've got an insert of the
what your
book.
pieces are.
Yeah, I know what the pieces are. And then it's interesting because you see all the kind of blocks, the building blocks set out by the director, and then there'll be a take that looks a little bit different. There's a camera move in it, and you go, oh, that's interesting. What's that for then? And knowing that these directors are very smart, they think everything through so much, and if there's one shot that's different in the coverage from all the rest that you get that day, but it's for that scene, you go, well, obviously, without even getting a note from Neil or Martin or whoever, that's meant to go into the show. You wouldn't waste any time doing a special shot that's quite
like
unique.
tracking or
Right.
So then I'll go, okay, where am I going to put that in? So I'll look at where it fits and in the storytelling of that scene and work that in, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting because now I'm like, okay, now I'm all in it. It's just like, because you see the daily, so you're really involved in the filming every day, it sounds like. And
Yes.
So you kind of consume what you hear and see, and then you're building it as they are filming it
Yes.
every day. So there's the finale, there was some with Highland, Little Jack, and his responses, and I don't know what Peter did, but it was so great, his expression in the time that we needed to see it. So those are the things I think that you do. You get that reaction and you place it in a place that our hearts are full, because it's just like, oh, he's so cute, but yet he's gonna have a dad, things like that. So it sounds like those last two episodes were hers. She did really?
all that fantastic work on the proposal. And I agree. And but I have to say, Highland, the little boy, Little Jack, is amazing. And Peter is amazing when he directs.
Yes, he is.
In real life, Peter's a real dad kind of guy, and he's got he jokes. He's a great joker. And so you hear him off camera in the dailies, like saying things to Highland to get his interest. I got to tell you one thing about Highland, which is so cool. Somebody mentioned it on Facebook. There's a scene in which Elisabeth and Little Jack are in front of the row house at the pump, and Nathan and Allie ride up. Allie has returned from her grandparents' house. And at the end of the scene, Highland, Allie and Nathan ride off. Highland runs over to the pump, and it's got a tiny little wheel on it. And he grabs this wheel and he goes, "I'm a pirate. Yo ho ho." And he totally ad-libbed this. It's a little kid, and it was hilarious. I cut it in and I went, oh, this has to stay in the show. This kid is too good. And
Yeah.
of course, everybody else loved it as well. So it stayed in. A lot of times ad libs by actors don't stay in, but
Yeah.
Highland was fantastic.
I'm in love with him. He's so great. But all of those choices that you have, and then so you you get a first draft. I don't know what you call it, but and then it goes to the director, and they have to approve it. Notes, right?
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you rearrange or do whatever they want to do. And then after the second edit, when is that, we have 3 or 4 edits before it goes to John Serrata, or how much time do you have before it is released to the next component?
We have a schedule that we follow, like that the post supervisor writes up for us, and it gives the same amount of time to each episode. So I don't know, I can't remember right now, but the director gets maybe 6 days for the 2 episodes, and then the producer gets, I think, 12 days, and then when it goes to Hallmark, it's 10 days. I'm kind of
Wow.
it's
You're getting
fluid.
notes from the network as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
you have the director and the network, and then you have to respond to that. I know that they said that it's like a 13-day block.
Yes.
Whatever, from the time is recorded to post-production. So
So when we're doing, by the time you're into your second block of the season, then you're editing dailies for the new stuff that's coming in at the same time. You're getting notes from the producers of the network, and you have to go to both shows and make changes, and and I have to say, it's not so much that the directors and the producers will make substantive changes to the choices that we make as editors, because the great thing about When Calls the Heart is that everybody's on the same page from the beginning. Like you wouldn't believe how hard that crew works, and they're really good at it, and everybody wants to make a really, really good show. We want the fans to be happy with it, right? So we pay attention to what the director and the actors and the producers' choices have been in the past. And I'm not saying that we self-edit or self-regulate. It's more like it's a collaboration.
Sure.
So, and we're really tuned into each other. So by the time we get notes, it usually has to do with something like, this show is, 4 or 5 minutes too long. It can't go to air this long. So what are we going to do to fix that? Well, we can find ways of what I call kind of like visual or media origami. I tend to find ways to fold shots over each other in time and space so that you get more mileage out of the actors looking their screen time. This is kind of difficult for me to explain. And you're taking all the air, all the empty air, the silences out. I mean, you don't do it to the point where it's like 1930s type banter between a gangster and a mall. We don't edit that fast, not usually. You let people breathe and have emotion, but you find ways to cinch things up. You can only take that so far, and then there's likely to be a time when somebody's going to say, "Well, let's lose some dialogue here," and you can say, "Yeah, you know what? Henry says much the same thing in scene 7 as he did in scene 3. We're kind of doing that idea twice.
Yeah.
So maybe we could lose it the second time. So you find individual lines here and there. Rarely does a whole scene leave, but it does happen. And in that case, if we take out whole scenes, when it goes to the network, then we append to the end of the cut. When they watch it, at the end of the episode, we'll have a card that says omitted scenes 5, 6A, blah, blah. And then because they want to see it, they want to make sure that we're not throwing something away that is quite valuable.
Sure. Wow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I have to ask, Charles, did you do season 5, the finale? Did you do that one? The one that the funeral and things like that?
Yeah, we're going to go there, eh? The death of Jack.
yeah.
If we're talking about what ends up on the cutting room floor and the changes that are made along the way,
Yeah.
that's a really, really good example. The week that we shot Elisabeth getting the news that Jack was dead, it was very tense. It was very tense in editing. I mean, I think that we kind of like just picked up the vibe that was going on set. Everybody knew that this was going to be a heavy and important story beat. Changed quite a lot of things. And as well as, you have to believe me, this is true, that for anybody who's had to break the news of a death to another family member or something like that, it's such a heavy moment in life. And there was a certain amount of that feeling, knowing that you're going to tell, a few million people that somebody who they care about is gone, so we took that responsibility. I'm a Heartie at heart.
Yeah.
So here's what happened was, it was a great scene that was written. Abigail and Elisabeth leave the saloon. They're in the middle of the street. They see the silhouette of a Mountie approaching. Oh, is that Jack? And Neil directed that. He did a fantastic job. He had tons of coverage. We could edit it in a million different ways. And my first cut of it, I played everything. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but like Abigail's reactions to her emotional reactions, the gaiety of the moment when they leave that party, when they see the Mountie, when the news is told, everything was covered in wider shots and close-ups and a high angle over the town's main street. And he did a great job. I cut it so that it was as powerful as possibly could be. Very intense, very dark, very heavy. And I watched it at the end. Oh my God, it was hard to watch as dailies. It was really, really powerful. And so then I showed it to Neil for his director's cut when he came in, and he watched it and he went, ooh, we can't do that to the fans, And he said, let's cut it back. So I made trims, cut a couple of shots, we cut it back. Then it went to the producers for the producers cut. Producers came back and said, yeah, that's too heavy. So we've got to cut that back. So we cut it back, we cut it back some more. Then went to the network, and Hallmark came back and said, no, this is too dark. Cut it back. So I cut more of it out.
Wow. Because it was really short.
Yes. And the first cut was far, far longer. But the version that aired, I'd have to say was the right one, after all of those cuts. I stand by the cut that I made in the first place. The first cut, I thought that I did a good job on it. But it wasn't When Calls the Heart. That specific scene, the content of it, the way it was shot, the emotion of it would have worked beautifully in some other show. I don't know what show that would be, but it wasn't right for When Calls the Heart.
Yeah. And
it was a process of discovery. I mean, it wouldn't have been right for Neil not to have covered it as extensively as he did. It was such an important moment. He needed to put all of his talent and expertise into telling that story. The process of getting to where we have the aired version was collaboration between lots of people, lots of producers. I don't know how many people at Hallmark were involved in their notes, several for sure, and myself. And we all wanted the best for that moment. And so, it was a lot of stuff that was on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
But what aired, I think, was the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I like that you described the process, that it had to be shot that way first.
Yeah, it had to be edited that way first too. Yeah.
To go, that's a lot of what editing is, and that's why I find notes quite fine, because it's a viewer, an informed viewer, saying, oh, this bumps for me, or does this tie back to this? So when you talk about a process, you have to start somewhere and then it evolves. And I mean, that's a great story.
Yeah,
It is.
absolutely. I was,
Amazing.
yeah, beware, because I'm just all in right now.
Okay.
Lot of really great, I mean, because we love our show. I mean, this is what we want to know. And because we are really delving in, I think it's really interesting about the collaborative environment that you see,
very
even
collaborative.
when you were doing, I mean, truly every chat that we've had, if it was a crew and or a cast, they all talk about the kind of collaborative environment that they have all the time. So it just solidifies that this show is not normal. It's just,
Extraordinary.
get the results that we have. And, we just saw Hallmark said we had what was the
8.6
8.6 million
unique viewers. Yeah.
unique viewers for this season,
Season.
just this season.
That's amazing.
So I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot. So yeah, so that's the reason why I think it translates. The job that you do translates. So
Yeah.
love
That's
it.
off.
And I just want to, I think, sort of add to your comment is I have never worked on a show like this before. Just how
Really.
inclusive it is, the good feelings that are throughout it. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And I saw it while Charles was working on it. So then when I got to work on it, it was like, yeah. Okay. And I kind of knew like nothing untoward was going to happen because it's like, this is a good group of people. And I was really happy to join it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad that you're here.
Well, even
you.
when we don't go to set very much because, well, Hope Valley set is out in the Fraser Valley of Vancouver here, and we're on an island. So, it's quite a journey to go. But the odd time that I have,
You went with Lucy.
yeah, we took our daughter there, and the cast were so incredibly welcoming and friendly and kind to our daughter.
I love all the different people, like the personalities that have been brought into the show.
Yeah, it's a unique thing. And even the cast, they think when they get a new, when Kevin and Chris was part of the show and introducing that, and they talk about, Aaron and Lori were so inviting, and you can't, I think because Aaron just loves the show enough and is passionate about it, and she just cares.
Yeah.
And sometimes, we don't have that for leading ladies sometimes that, they do their job and they leave and they don't have any stake in the game. And I see that with Erin. I mean, she is always engaging the Hearties for these 9 seasons.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Sunday night. So,
pretty passionate about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we see that here. So,
you know what? Talk about passionate and the connections. When I did my first block, the 2 episodes, she wrote me a note, like just saying, "Oh, I really appreciate what editors do, and it's interesting to me and stuff." And I just went, "What?"
We
don't talk to.
We love to hear that.
That I tear up with that. I mean, it's just so great, so great. Oh, I love that. I love that you told us that, because that volumes for Aaron.
There have been a lot of moments like that from many people, like, because you kind of touched on this earlier, like what's the back and forth between editing and shooting, and how we all work together. And it like Charles said, it's quite fluid. Like we may, on one show, it's just like, you guys stay there, do your thing, we'll see it when it's done.
You're talking about different series.
Different series. Yeah. That's a better way to say it. Yeah. So in this one, I noticed that there are a lot of opportunities for the back and forth. Like if we're choosing stills that are going to be photographs, we go to the art department and they tell us their requirements. We tell them what we can do, and it's like back and forth. and then you come up with something. And it's really like just that sort of the opportunities. There are many of them. So
Wow.
it just makes the whole job very interesting.
Oh, sure.
Oh, that's great. So some of the Hearties were anxious to ask some questions, and Heather Hood from Minneapolis was really the one asking about, the whole process and, if you got to go on set timed while they were filming and, how much involvement you had with the writer's room, et cetera. So thank you very much for all of that. Can you talk to us about scenes in which you think your editing work was particularly consequential? John Tinker definitely credited you with saving some scenes this season, but what scene do you think your craft really contributed to either in this season or in a past season?
There was a scene where two couples were talking. So there was Faith and Molly in one room, and there was Nathan and Bill in another. And the conversations ended up coming together where one part of the conversation with the women then led to the next sentences with the men. And it was so interesting, like that it was set up man, woman in the first place. I found that interesting. And then combining it like that. So I had cut it, and I had, as Charles said, tried to imagine what is it that you would like to see? Like, oh, we heard this. Well, then we'd like to see, are you kind of askance at that comment or whatever? And so I did it. It went through cut. It went through, all the different versions. And then at one point, John just quite quietly said, that wasn't exactly how I imagined that. And I said, well, how did you imagine it? And he told me, well, I imagined it as a quicker conversation, like more rapid intercutting. And I just went, oh, okay, well, and I think it had already gone to Hallmark at that point. So it was kind of we're finishing that show. And then I just thought, I'll just do it. Because he wrote it. He wants to see what he imagined, and I can do it. So I did a recut of it, and he was like, yes. And that was it. So then we did send it back to Hallmark and get their reapproval of it. But I just really enjoyed that somebody could say, it worked. It worked the way it was, but he had this feeling that he wanted to see something different. And I was like, well, let's do that. And it feels
and you
so
did it.
to do that. Yeah. Just like, anyway, that was my story.
There's another scene that Hearties really perked up at. It's the traffic jam scene, and Nathan had to manage. This was early in season 9, and it posed a lot of challenges for the whole crew. There were old cars and horses, and then the directing of all the action. Can you tell us about editing that scene, as it had so many moving parts?
Yeah, sometimes when you get dailies on something that's that big and involved with all of those actors and horses and cars, Rosemary popping out
wagons,
of the window, and Mr. Canfield, Joseph Canfield on the wagon. Well, sometimes you look at that and first thing in the morning and go, oh no, I'll do this later in the day. There's just so much to go to. But Neil directed that again, and the other directors, I'm not being a Neil favorite here, although maybe I am. I don't know. No, but Neil directed that, and I knew that there was going to be like it was going to be like a treasure chest, I could go through each shot and he could go, oh yeah, that's good for that, that's good, this shot is good for that line, but when Nathan says the next one, it'd be better over on this angle. And you could just see Neil figuring this out, watching the dailies and going like, this is going to be fun. But the challenge with it was that you don't want to make it so, sorry, I'm not looking at the camera, but the challenge with it was that you didn't want it to become so busy so fast that it becomes a turnoff. That's like, and because it also got to be the noise of the honking and the engines, and that was actually quite a challenge because we're not doing finished audio. We're just working with the production track that they record on set. And we've got these little mixers on our edit suites, connected to our edit suites that we can adjust levels on. But we don't do anywhere near the finishing that they do in sound post and audio post. They're very talented people over there, and they've got great equipment, which we don't. And so it was hard to keep everybody alive, all of those actors and all those lines. By keeping them alive, I mean giving them screen time. And we can't forget that, Henry's driving up this moment at the back of this jam, and meanwhile there's a backfire of one of the other cars, and it's got to spook the horse now. And that's really, we can't lose that in all the actions. We really have to make sure that we get that the horse is spooked, because this is a big plot point for Nathan. He's been hit by a car, the horse, in the previous episode. And he and the horse are in a process of recovering from that trauma. And so you got to play that serious beat in what's by and large a comedic scene. So it was very interesting. Like I say, it's like opening up a little jewel box and finding all these bits that are really cool to use, and I get to construct it. And in the end, cutting room floor talk, there was maybe one or two lines that were, there was a back and forth between Rosemary and Joseph on the wagon. She's screaming across the street from the window.
From her window, yes.
And he's like yelling back, and what? So it became a little bit too chaotic at that point. And so we dialed it down. We lost those two lines, but that was about it. The rest of it all stayed in.
That's neat.
Fascinating. Well, and there was another episode. There's the one where Lucas is throwing a surprise book party for Elisabeth, and it goes from romance on the balcony scene to a large group in the saloon. And what kind of editing challenges did that present?
Well,
okay.
No, you know what? I think, you already know. It was that difference between something really intimate and dark even, and close. And
by dark you mean it's outside, not dark in tone, right? It was romantic.
Dark visually.
Yeah, but she was kind of down too, so that's a good point. Yeah, and he kept trying to, that's a really good point. So yeah, the mood was down too. It was and also, Charles and I were talking about it last night, and he pointed out that in that scene as well, it was slowed down because
Lucas,
thank you.
Yeah, he was stalling.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God. He had to slow down that scene because he needed the extra time for the party to kind of get all arranged.
Yeah, for everybody to arrive.
Yeah, to arrive. Like that sort of. Yeah. So Siobhan did a beautiful job on that, on the interior, amazing. Then all the emotion.
Siobhan is the director.
Siobhan Devine.
Yeah.
Lovely last name. And she, when we were working together, she already realized there would have to be something that would work out between the party and the outside. And so we started addressing that. And then when John came in again, we were addressing it, and it was always sort of,
well, you have to give air to Lucas and Elisabeth on the balcony, because he's stalling her, but you can't play the stalling so much that everybody's bored.
Yeah.
To the contrast, that was an interesting thing. Just you can't have the music and the lights and all of that without some sort of entry point, right? So it was just choosing.
Transition.
You go to, it was kind of interesting, and I got to say, a lot of it is by feel, Oh, that's what I was going to say was sort of each moment that you create, I guess, should be another part of the story. I think that's something interesting about the filmmaking, is it's always about story. I can think of, at one point, Peter DeLuise said to me, "Did you see that?" And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Did you see that drip over there?" And I'm like, "No, I was looking at the actors." He's like, that drip in the background is distracting. And from then on, of course, all I saw was the drip. And it detracts from the story. So we kind of worked it so that it's no more drip. So everything is informing the story. I think that's what everyone's trying to bring to it. I mean, everyone, it's the story. So when the story is king. So when we're, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say this properly, but it's when you're editing something, I think you do kind of entertain yourself with what the story is. Like you're like, oh, I'm going along, and you have to kind of imagine like, oh, I have no idea there's a party, so I'm just going to keep talking about what I had for dinner or that I don't want to eat. And he's like, oh God, this is so tense. And like, so there's different people's stories going on at the same time, and you kind of guide which parts you're paying attention to, and then it just goes to the party.
Tell us how editing helps usher in and introduce new players in Hope Valley.
The introduction of the new characters, that's, I mean, obviously it starts with the writing, and the directors come up with interesting and unique ways of introducing characters. And then it's up to the editor to pay attention to those shots that best introduce the character. I can think of when Lee was introduced, the camera was way up on a crane above Hope Valley, and you see this dust cloud down the road, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And suddenly there's a motorcycle for the first time in Hope Valley, and it comes down to the main street. The cameras come down onto the street, and the motorcycle circles around, and Lee takes off the goggles, and that's Lee's entrance. And that was a very nice directorial move by Neil, but unfortunately that shot got chopped quite heavily in the end by the time it got. But it was very, very good storytelling, to introduce this adventurous man that way. Conversely, when Fiona was introduced, it was a very stylish laced up boot that exits the stage on a close. And then okay, well, this is an interesting person here. This is we've got all these other ladies in Hope Valley, and this is a unique person like the rest. Like, I mean, unlike the rest, but like all the rest, unique in her style. And Rosemary showed up inside the stagecoach. I believe it was a close up on the side window of the stage, and she pops out like full of glamour and vinegar. I mean, whoa, when she, right? And so, you're just trying to highlight the personality of these characters the first time they're seen, make sure that you're not cutting away from it too soon. Let everybody soak this person in, And I think when Lucas showed up, I think he was introduced in a wide shot. I think so. He's walking up to the saloon, which he has just bought. I think he takes the for sale sign off. I think that's the way it worked. And the boys are across the street, Nathan and Bill, I believe, and Jesse, and they're watching this guy with suspicion. And that again, that was where Lucas's story arc was when he first showed up, right? He's this mysterious gambler, I was like, who is this guy? Do we like him? We don't trust him, do we? So. Wow.
So many. I mean, I don't remember some of those things. I'm like, oh, that's right.
You know what? I don't know if maybe this is interesting to some of the people who work as editors who wrote in, I saw on Facebook, but maybe they have the same thing, but I think you do too, develop a body memory for things. Like you spend hours and hours, every day working on individual people, their close-ups and their shots, and trying to find ways to make everything stitch together seamlessly, and so that nobody's aware of the edit. Nobody should really be paying attention to the editing. It should be in the background, right?
Seamless,
And so you work so hard at that the struggle, the effort becomes memorable in your muscles.
Yeah.
I can remember scenes that I cut 20 years ago. I can see some, I've seen a show that I cut on YouTube. I'll go, oh yeah, I should look at that. See, is that any good anymore? Was I any good then? And I'll look at it and I'll feel that feeling of having to work the material. It's
wow. Well,
that's so interesting.
Yeah, you're talking about it's all of the service to the story. What you do, and the whole idea is because the story is compelling. And we had a chat with John Serrata, and we were talking about so many epic times that it was all just music, but it was expertly edited. I think about season 5, this finale, Elisabeth on the horse, things like that. So, but the music is really important, like the opening that it's an epic John Serrata composition.
Yeah.
So can you talk about editing the intro for, and every year it's kind of different because we have new characters that are featured, but also Jonna Yates from Southwest Virginia is curious why the actors' names are not featured in the opening as well.
Well, that's, excuse me, that's contractual. So that would be the actors and the actors' agents working that out with the network and the producers. So, obviously, Aaron and, Kevin and Chris and Bill will be on that. Their names will be there on that main title. The rest, I don't know, not privy to those sort of discussions, but that's really what it is. It's just, it's the same thing in a feature film, like where somebody's credit is placed is negotiated.
Okay. Yeah. So the opening, the opening, not credits, but that
montage.
Yeah, just the montage of all the characters, because there's no character names in that at all. It's after you go to the story. So you do just one for the whole season, right?
Yes.
For the opening.
Yeah. I think a lot of opening title sequences are created by a separate unit or post-production house or visual effects.
Interesting. Okay.
In our case, it's not. Those main titles are drawn from actual production. But footage.
Sorry.
So for instance, that shot that cranes down from like there are flowers on the side of the hotel, I think it is, and it cranes down, there are townspeople walking by, and you see the church through the street there. That's from one episode. Well, basically, I mean, every shot is from an episode, including the all of the individual shots that are used to show Aaron and Chris and Kevin and all that. So, so like last year, I asked, was it last year? Did I ask you and your assistant? Yeah, to see if you could find shots of, beauty shots of the actors, and then I'll look through my episodes. We'll get them all together and cut it together. And, it's nice to have a few shots of the town and the townspeople. And I like to think that the extras who have been so loyal and been such a big part of the show that, they get a bit of due in there as well, because, they get to see themselves.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
By the way, those extras, Hope Valley extras, I really like. They try hard and they're experienced. There are times when you can work on a show where extras don't have experience, and you can't blame them, but they might get in the way of the shot because they're not aware that actions that they're doing or facing the camera and miming, speaking or singing and stuff like that can be distracting. Like Elisabeth was saying, like Peter would say, there's a drip coming off of the roof. It's distracting me. And
or
so sometimes extras
like
can be
this
distracting.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
like that. It's like,
Yeah, but the extras in Hope Valley,
good.
they're really good.
Yeah.
They give life to the shots. There's a lot of production value to having them there, and their costumes, their wardrobe.
It's huge because it makes it feel like you're seeing part of something that's there. You're not, you know what I mean? It's not just these isolated characters doing their thing. They're part of a community.
Yeah.
So I like that it's the same people.
Wow. So we talked about the cutting room floor. So can you tell us some of the moments that was so hard to just, release it and say, I have to go, and it has to go the cutting room floor. And what kind of scenes that maybe you would restore if you had the decision making?
Oh yeah, I've got a mental catalog of them, and it's an embarrassment of riches, and it's unfortunate that we have it's not unfortunate that we have a set time that you have to dial these shows into, because it's actually the discipline of having a form that makes you try hard, right? You have to strive to make it the tightest that it can be. So I don't, begrudge the format that we're in. However, as you know, with that big ensemble cast, there are usually 3 stories going on at the same time. The A story is usually Elisabeth and Chris Lucas at some point in their relationship, and then there might be a B story that involves Henry and his trials, and then there'll be a C story that could be Clara and Jesse at that time, or Fiona and Mike Hickam, stuff like that. And it's often that third story that ends up being cut, or much of it reduced. Yeah. In the last couple of years, the writers have given Florence and Ned much more page time, screen time. And the stories are so charming, and they're funny. And those 2 actors, Hrothgar and
Loretta.
Sorry, Loretta. They are so good. Yeah. They are really good actors, and they've got great comic timing. And some of the scenes that were written for them, I absolutely loved. And unfortunately, they were the scenes that were reduced or cut out. And
wow.
So I'd like to see more of them on screen. I don't have that say, but they are really, really entertaining. I enjoy them quite a lot. I really enjoy seeing Mike Hickam and Fiona, not necessarily as a romantic couple, but just the dynamic between the 2 of them. They're really good. Yeah. And Ben Hickam, who knew how good he is, in previous years, his roles were smaller, right? And in the last 2 years, with the storylines that he's been given, you can see this guy really stretching out, and it's been a lot of fun.
His one line when Fiona, he leaves Hope Valley and arrives, and Fiona's talking about, oh, well, there's so much that, and then, the toaster, and Ben, really?
Tell me about it.
Cold. Come on.
Out of everything else in town.
Toaster.
The toaster. And
or also in the show when Bill is trying to muscle in on Hickam at the bar, and the barman to take that one back and give him a beer that's got a head
45 degrees.
Yeah.
Nice.
And Hickam doesn't take it lying down. He just takes
it's good. Yeah.
Beer. I love that scene.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
So fun.
Annie Esp edits for TV News in Chicago, and she commented, some of the best moments are when you just let the show breathe with a long shot and the music finishes the scene or the show. Can you tell us a bit about the pacing? And, because storytelling seems to move really quickly on TV these days, especially with the large ensemble cast. What can you tell us about, scenes that maybe benefited from your help when it came to pacing? I guess you gave us an example earlier with the scene that John had imagined, going faster. So that's one. Yeah.
I'd love to have more time spent on lingering wider shots that, give you time to contemplate and, relax and, just kind of be there with the characters. It's difficult to achieve that, in a, less than 50-minute, episodic show. my own taste is that I do like that. On the other hand, we have to tell a story, so there aren't a lot of opportunities where we can do that. Interesting that the lady's a TV news editor.
TV news,
Yeah. That was my former profession as well.
Oh.
I edited documentaries and I shot TV news. But I thought it might be interesting for you to know, because I'm that vain, I guess, that I was a TV cameraman in what I believe was Jeanette Oak's Hope Valley, which is it's a valley in Alberta and British Columbia that contains the town of Frank that was destroyed by a coal mine collapse and landslide at the early 20th century. Yeah. And so, yeah, I got to shoot a lot in that area there, where the miners live and, First Nations. And I wouldn't have been able to imagine that, 20 years later, I'd be editing a fictitious fiction version of that place.
Imagine that. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. But it's so many, season 9. I mean, come on. You've had all of that opportunity to go through, and the pacing, quick or slow. I mean, there's so many things that are, well, even this season, with Elisabeth discovering that Rosemary was pregnant. That is another, but
that was sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the Pascal did I cut that, and Pascal was fantastic in that. I mean, and we could have stayed on her close up as it dawns on her. Oh my gosh, I could be pregnant. Could I be? This can't be happening, And then she lays down. There was so much thought. She's a really good actor. There was so much thought in her eyes,
It's high caliber.
Yeah, she doesn't dilate
Yes.
it. I mean, phoning it rather.
Yeah, no.
She talked about that Rosemary is so, but in those really pivotal moments, she goes small. And that, and with your editing, I mean, you could see it. I love that it's the wide shot when she lays down and just whispers. And I'm like, that is, we, as an audience member, we are there, we know what she's done with how many years of infertility and things like that. So that was a great moment too.
It was also great in their house, and that was the first time that we got to see their bedroom upstairs in the row house.
Yeah, absolutely.
She did such a fantastic job with Kevin on the revelation.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the second time actually? Because when she's sick with the chicken pox.
Chicken pox, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Her bedroom. Yeah.
I forgot about that. Can I tell you one editing thing that I thought was like, talk about pacing, was when in season 8, Ali draws up a really nice invitation to dinner, give to Nathan, and she gives, to have dinner with Nathan, and she gives it to Elisabeth in the schoolhouse, and Elisabeth decides, no, I can't do this. And she gets up, she says, Ali, I'm not going to come. I can't do it. And Ali's heart gets broken. And Jada, pardon me.
Jada, yeah.
Jada, she really brought it that day.
Yeah.
And she was good. She was really good. And I tried really, really hard to milk every bit of the emotion in her face, like stay on it as long as possible. And then she tears that invitation up in front of Elisabeth's face. It's like she's tearing up her own heart,
Right.
And I don't mean this as a boast, but I think that scene had no changes to it at all. And I credit the actors because they just brought such great performances, and all I had to do was pay attention to it, and not get in the way.
Yeah. That's editing.
There you go.
Yep. Powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, we're talking about, great performances, and you see the rough cuts, you see the dailies. Which performances or moments really struck you this season? I mean, we've talked about some of those already previously, but anything else that we kind of missed? I mean, those are two great pivotal ones that we were just talking about.
What about Henry in the jail?
Oh,
Oh my.
Well, that from the get-go was pretty amazing.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that was,
So what was
It's
that when you
very-
saw that first daily for
Hmm.
that particular scene? What was that like for you?
well, it was definitely a different kind of scene. And I think that the script had been aiming, like leading towards redemption. And I think that he chose to do it in that way, that he asked for help, which is a big thing, I think, for him to do.
Yeah.
And that he not humbled himself, that's not the right word, but he
Well, he accessed humility, maybe.
That's maybe the bit. Yeah, it was an active thing for sure. And just that he allowed it to happen. I just think that that scene stands on its own and is powerful, was written to be powerful, acted powerfully. It was what it was supposed to be. And I loved it. And I know it affected a lot of people, I think. I mean, I gotta say, like, when you ask for favorite scenes or things like that, I find it really difficult because a lot of stuff just flashes in my mind. And oddly, though I know that scene is a big deal, and also when he's at the mine and he blasts it and the whole community feels it, like that. I mean, in many layers, that said a lot, like that the community's all together and that they're all affected by it. He made this really hard choice. But then I think of things like when I thought you were like, be quiet.
Yeah, like just because I do that, right?
Yeah, he does that all the time.
Oh.
He does not do that all the time. Anyway, we're not going to talk about our marriage. Okay, I am going to talk.
We're working together, yeah.
I totally am going to talk about our marriage.
Feel
I'll
free.
tell you why. Because I think that, was it Greg or was it John was sort of like, I don't want Elisabeth working on this show to impact your marriage negatively.
Yeah.
Oh.
Was it Greg or
Both of
both
them
of
said it at
them,
one point or
yeah,
another. They were saying,
okay.
like, don't, yeah, you might not want to work together. And I said, but the funny thing is that, like I said, we worked together at the last time was 24 years ago. Elisabeth worked quite a lot after that, of course, and so did I, but that was the last time we did together. But what was interesting with that as a couple, and the funny thing is that was a TV series and producers didn't know we were married.
Yeah.
And they hired Elisabeth completely outside of my knowledge. And suddenly she's my co-worker, right? And but we had
private lives.
Yeah, actually it was on that show. Yeah, anyway, we had assistants who were maybe a little green or intimidated. And what I like to do is that if I have an issue with the scene, if I have a problem with it, I'll ask for some advice, and I'll go to the assistant and say, come take a look at the scene. Tell me what you think. What's wrong with this? I won't tell them what I think is wrong. I say, what's wrong with this? And they'll go, oh, no, that's great. That's really good. No, I really like that. I go, oh, shoot. But, I could go to Elisabeth and say, okay, take a look at the scene. What's wrong with this? And she'd go, yeah, no. Yeah, you can't do that. Don't do that.
Okay, I don't think I talk like that. I am ruthless, but
yeah, you're very honest. And then
Yeah.
it's the same thing with me. Like last year, this year, season 9.
Yeah.
I'm in Elizabeth Sweden looking at something that she's trying to solve a problem with, I don't know, continuity of action with some of the actors, and I'm going like, yeah, no, that doesn't work. That totally takes me out of it.
Yeah.
And so all that means is that she takes another pass at it and tries harder, and she does the same for me. I just try harder, so
That's a good way of saying it. Yeah. Definitely.
So yeah, they had no reason to fear. We've always been each other's best critic and best coworker. So
That's great though. I love
Yeah,
that.
Yes.
Good to trust somebody. Like they're not just gonna let you go out the door with something weird, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Got your back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
always have felt that.
can I return to the asking about scenes?
Mhm.
Elisabeth mentioned the jailhouse with Henry. Similarly, in the episode, I think it was the one immediately preceding that, there's a church service. Joseph Canfield is holding the church service, and we're outside of the church, and Henry walks up, and you think he's gonna take Joseph up on it, and he's actually gonna, and he stops short, and he stands there and he listens, and then he slumps and he turns around and he walks away. And it was very powerful. And I credit the writing, the directing, and the acting on that. There's no editing.
There was no editing.
And I know that there was this point in time where somebody along the post-production line said, let's cut to a close-up of Henry here to see his face, because we're on his back there. But there was no close-up. The director didn't shoot one. And that was a smart decision, because that shot from behind with the church there, the voices, and his posture said a million words. You know, it would have been far less powerful to go to a close-up and show his face, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So many
Well,
powerful.
it left us wondering, what might we see in the future because of that? And maybe if we had had the close-up shot, we wouldn't have wondered.
Mm-hmm.
Could be. Yeah, good point.
Kept the mystery.
Wow.
So
if you leave things more open, sometimes there's more room to put yourself in it.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
it gives you that moment to think. Like I'm kind of thinking two thoughts at the same time. It's relating to music as well, again, which is that is something that you think of while you're editing. Is you don't just think of your own job, like you think sound and the music. Just
You have to. John would get very angry if we cut it too fast.
I think he even said, leave me room here.
He needs
it's
room
like,
for the score.
okay, like, thank you. It's good to hear from other creatives, like what they need to do their jobs. So I like that a lot.
I think When Calls the Heart does a really good job of allowing the viewers to get into the scene and be part of it. And I feel like when the Hearties say, "Oh, there's too many commercials," I'm sure it's because they just still want to be in that scene. It's like, why do we have to go to commercial? I was loving this so much.
The mood that was created.
Yeah,
that's right.
And with every episode's like 42 minutes, so it's not the commercial at all. But I understand.
It's a good show.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I kind of feel like I'm backtracking a little bit. When you were talking about favorite scenes, we were talking about Henry in the jail, but I was also thinking one that I loved, which could have been one that was cut, which I'm so glad these types of scenes stay in it. I think it was within the same episode. There was Florence, all these women came over to her place and brought cakes and things like that. And they were in solidarity with her. And, it was so beautiful. And in the very end, she's like, at the door. And it just said so much just about their community and the strength and inclusivity, all of it. And I think in that same it happened just before that scene. She was practicing ballet.
Yes.
Oh yeah. That could have so easily been like, don't need it, because what's that the story about? But I love it. And it does pay off later when she's talking about having done something that was for herself, and but it just, I love all those little moments. Like, they're so good.
Yeah.
It's very well written.
I love the girlfriend world. There's
it's different.
You don't really see that in another. I mean, I don't know that even network television, just kind of we're it's not featured, but it's featured. I don't know how to describe it, but you know that they have a kinship
Yes.
with the women, and especially this show, because as its original season 1, it's almost all widows, and we didn't have a lot of men in the town anyway. So yeah, I love that.
That was nice when we had Dottie's dress shop too, because it was a place where the women got together and socialized, and I quite enjoyed that as well, for that same reason you had that community thing. Now with the barbershop, now Fiona's barbershop has come to take that place, I think, to a lesser extent, but it still is. It's where she practiced ballet, wasn't it?
Yeah, love that. So as this recording, we don't have season 10 yet. But let's pretend that we have.
We do that all the time.
So you might be, kind of tapped to do a baby delivery or maybe a wedding. But what kinds of things that are you anticipating in a storyline that you are most eagerly anticipating? And what technical challenges?
See, that's the part I remember about. I remember the question is, what's going to be difficult? Because I had written on this little piece of paper, babies.
Yeah.
Babies.
I know
Oh my
somebody
God,
was wishing that
babies.
Rosemary would have twins. And
Yeah, and I'm like,
no,
then you
no.
need 4 babies.
4 babies.
Can you imagine 4 babies on set?
Well, 4 babies as Rosemary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And Lee.
They're kids. Oh my goodness. Wow.
I know, if there's going to be a wedding, if there's a season 10 and there is a wedding, I would just wish that, from my place of ignorance, that it wouldn't happen in the first few episodes. I'm interested in seeing Elisabeth and Lucas, right? I'd like to see that relationship not tested, but I'd like to see things happen with it that are
Unexpected, maybe?
Sorry?
Unexpected, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know about unexpected, but
challenging, right?
yeah, I want to see them go through the things that we went through when we first started dating before you get married. Just sort of
Nobody wants to see that.
Us, no, but them, yes. Yeah. Just that you start to learn about each other and develop interests in each other's interests and that sort of thing. I know they've been doing that all along, but I would just think it's a pretty cool time before you're married and you're discovering each other's personalities. And I don't know, I'm not a writer, so I wouldn't know how to express that, but that's my feeling about it.
Yeah, there was an interview, I think, with Elizabeth Stewart. I think it was E.T. And they were saying that there would be some challenges with Elisabeth and Lucas. And people were like, no. I'm like, but they're 2 single people. They're going to a new, I don't know, a new home, but new environment for their couple. They have to have some conflict. How do you not have it? If they talk about too idealistic, I don't think that our writers are going to do that. But so I agree. There's some bumps in the road that they need to kind of deal with as we go to the wedding and then, transition to a household. So
what do you guys think about Nathan and Lucas friendship? I really
love it.
It made
So
me really
fun.
happy, that scene when they were out in the woods and just they were each holding their own but communing. I was like, that's pretty cool. Nobody changed for the other, and it was just
not at all
out there.
Yeah, I love that as well. Yeah, I think that is something that I think it's anticipated, but I think Chris, when we talked to him in the Heart to Heart, he was talking about that it's like a brother, like an older brother, they're just pestering each other. And I see it. I mean, even that one scene when they were camping out, I'm like, and the idea of, well, I don't have coffee, it's like,
I love that.
Okay, tea. It was so funny, but I do love that.
Thank you very much, Charles and Elisabeth, for joining us. It's so nice for the Hearties to be able to keep talking about the show during the off season. And we really appreciate the extra things that you've given us to commiserate about. So,
thank you. I can tell you it's nerve-wracking for me. I think, you all right with this? I am so tense.
What do I say to that?
Well, I mean, I'm tense to being on camera.
Right now, she says.
Yeah.
But it's fun being with you.
I was about to say the same thing. I'm like, can we do sort of a sub part where we just talk about whatever? Because I used to, whenever John and I would do notes together, it was a similar thing. Like I really enjoy it talking with him. So it was like, when do we do the chat part and when do we do the work part? Like, usually if we do the work first, that's all we end up doing because it's pretty intense. Like you just do it. And I mean, he can joke while I'm working, but I'm like, I missed the whole conversation we had together because I was working while he was like, because you know what I mean? What I do takes more time and he's writing and doing other things while we talk. What was my point? Oh, the mix between social and working, because it is, the people are so nice, like just like that's where I was going with this, because it was so nice talking with you guys, but I was always kind of on task, like I couldn't just kind of go blah, whatever.
But you didn't, you did.
But I did now.
Yay, thank you.
No, we love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's how we're going out.
Charles and Elisabeth have given us another reason to go back and rewatch season 9, haven't they? Enjoy your time seeing their handiwork, and thanks for joining us for Heart to Heart.